as a religious fight. They say terrorism affects both Muslims and Christians in Nigeria and across the Sahel, this arid and semi-arid part of Africa.
It was a collaborative effort between Nigeria and the US, and President Tinubu gave the go-ahead before it took place, and we don't see it violating our sovereignty or territorial integrity, which is very important. And it's not about religion, it's about the protection of lives and property of Nigerians and our neighbors as well.
Exact numbers of Christian or Muslim victims of these attacks in Nigeria are hard to come by, but the population is evenly split between Christians and Muslims. Some of the reasons behind these conflicts has been the battle for resources between herders and farmers. There's been ethnic tensions, and yes, there have been religious angles to some of these conflicts, killings and kidnappings that have been widely reported. But a few days ago, there was an explosion blamed on a suicide bomber at a mosque. The Nigerian vice president visited victims of that attack. It has been an animating issue for many in the US, MAGA right, and it finally made its way before President Trump. And we saw this cryptic post from the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who only said, more to come. Larry McDowell, CNN, London.
President Trump continues to vent his frustration over the release of the Jeffrey Epstein documents. On a Truth Social post, he suggested the Justice Department focus on his claims of election fraud instead of parsing through the rest of the documents. Now, this comes after the DOJ announced over 1 million more pages potentially related to the Epstein case were discovered. The Justice Department says it may need a few more weeks to review all the documents before releasing them. Now, to break all of this down, I want to bring in political analyst Michael Genovese. He is also the president of the Global Policy Institute at Loyola Marymount University. Thank you, first of all, for joining us at this hour. Let's start with these Epstein files, because we've seen the White House's position shift on this once we saw, of course, President Trump's name come up in the documents. But how is the White House going to continue to balance President Trump's desires with this growing outcry for the documents, which are overdue, by the way, to be released in their entirety?
They can't find a balance. As you mentioned, about 1 million new documents that were discovered, and there's going to be a continuous grip, slow walking the release of these out. It is violating the law. Those papers are all supposed to be released by now. And the Department of Justice is facing a lot of criticism. They have had their thumb on the scale for Donald Trump, not the victims, and they've lost a lot of credibility. There's been a blowback. A lot of people are talking about contempt charges filed against the Attorney General Bondi. But Donald Trump, he promised to drain the swamp. And on the Jeffrey Epstein matter, he's the swamp. He and his rich friends who would visit the island or be on his plane or hang out with him. And so Donald Trump is losing a key element of his base, the Christian conservative base, who take this very seriously. Donald Trump is speaking, especially his Christmas time address, with more empathy towards the men who were named than of the victims of this. And so there's a real problem for Donald Trump. He has long believed that he could distract the story will not go away.
And there's a lot, of course, that's been on President Trump's plate during this Christmas week. One of them is, of course, this announcement of 1 million more files discovered that could be related to Jeffrey Epstein. But the other one has been strikes on the Islamic State. The strikes in Nigeria, which I just reported about, mark the second time this week that Mr. Trump has ordered American military retaliation against a branch of the Islamic State. What is the strategy here? Why do this now?
Well, Donald Trump has claimed that this is an example of persecution and slaughter against Christians. And clearly Christians are being killed in Nigeria. That led to a launch of over a dozen Tomahawk missiles. ISIS is responsible. And the question is, who is ISIS targeting? ISIS is not targeting Christians alone. They're targeting anyone who disagrees with them or who opposes them. And so you've got Nigeria, a country of about 220 million people, roughly half of which are Christians, half are Muslim. And according to Donald Trump's statistics, and the report suggested, and it's true, it's hard to get good statistics, but the stats that Donald Trump is using said that there were about 3,100